Welcome back, everybody, to Let's Talk Toku. That's right. I'm Squall Charlson. I'm your host, as always, on this show, and I'm joined by a really great friend, SentaiFive.
What's up, everybody?
So for anybody watching at home that may not be familiar with you, you're predominantly on like the Twitter side of Toku. Could you explain to everybody what you do, who you are in the fandom?
I'm not really anybody in the fandom. I just watch the shows. I give my very unadulterated opinions on it. Sometimes I may be, a little too harsh on some shows, but at the same time, I do give my time to rewatch them again and then see what happens after that. But aside from that, I make video edits on YouTube. My YouTube is SentaiFive Official. And I also help co-host and edit a podcast, actually two podcasts, Legion of Boom right here.
Oh, yeah.
And then also Buildcasters, which is a mecha anime-oriented podcast that I also co-host as well.
Very cool. So if you guys want to check him out after the show, be sure to head on over to his Twitter. He's got all of his links right there. You can check that out. Pretty good stuff. I've listened to Legion of Boom a few times. I wish I had more time for everything,
I know. There's a lot of stuff out there.
The thing that I'm usually spending my time with, and it's important for today's episode, is... Well, I watch more than just this, but this is a good tie-in. It's the anniversary seasons in Tokusatsu. So if you guys aren't familiar, obviously you have a show that goes on for longer than 5-10 years. It's going to have a season where it's an anniversary, and Sentai does it a little differently. Kamen Rider does it pretty differently. Ultraman is like pretty much every other season is an Ultraman anniversary. And then of course Power Rangers. So we're going to be covering those major anniversaries because I don't think Metal Hero has had like an anniversary season.
I mean, if you want to count the Gavan movie back during Go Busters, that was for the 30th right there.
I guess. But like in terms of like
sense.
In terms of like seasons, I don't think that it's had
oh no.
Like a legit one.
Brazil's doing I think isn't Just Beyond coming back in Brazil?
Yeah.
Doing something for that?
I heard a little bit about that.
That's the only thing I could really think of though.
So what exactly do you think defines an anniversary season other than it being the 10th or the 20th or the 30th, 40th, whatever?
We're talking about like terms of like the content of said season.
Like what do you hope to expect in an anniversary season?
Well, I hope to expect obviously returning cast members. I think that's like a plus on everybody's side. Really just somehow what I like to see is a way to continue parts of their previous story incorporated into this current team. Obviously like somehow the new heroes learn a lesson or they help tie up loose ends from whatever show that happen to have unsolved questions or plot points.
It's like a Tokusatsu unsolved mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember that show? So basically you expect to see returning previous members. So like for Sentai, you obviously have, a member or a few from the team. Rider, right. You have the Riders returning. Ultraman, it's mostly the monsters that return, but sometimes they do get the cast members as well. Right. Same with Power Rangers. Let's start with Sentai, because I think obviously by your name SentaiFive, I'm a big Sentai guy. Everybody online likes to brand me as a Kamen Rider fan, Kamen Rider guy, but I'm a Sentai dude. Like that's my jam.
I like both Kamen Rider and Sentai, but obviously by the name I have a little bit more of a preference.
Right. So in Sentai anniversaries, what was the very first one that we got? Was it Gao Ranger, the 25th?
If we want to be technical, well, remember, if we really want to be technical, Gao Ranger was definitely like the first, like, it had like a whole like anniversary movie to it and everything. That was like the first time we ever got something. Uh-huh. And then I know Turbo Ranger for the start of the Heisei era, they did the whole gathering of all the Super Sentai at that time, which didn't include Go Ranger and Jaka. So I don't know if we want to be. I would say Gao Ranger, but at the same time, it's not Gao Ranger.
That's crazy. Like, if we can do like a little side tangent, like Super Sentai wasn't Super Sentai until the third season on when it came back and it didn't adapt and like take in those other ones under the name of Super Sentai. It's messy.
Yeah. I know Live Man had their 10th anniversary logo for the Super Sentai as well. And I think for the O-Ranger movie, it had the 20th anniversary logo on it too, but that's pretty much it.
Sentai's weird. Like, I remember watching Gal Ranger. Like, when I first got into Tokusatsu, I found a site that had they had the Gal Ranger versus Super Sentai movie, and that had, that was my first introduction, because usually for Sentai movies you have previous team versus current team, and then they have a problem, and then they work together. But this was like all of Sentai was returning to help the Gal Rangers, and I was like, what is this?
That was actually one of my first Super Sentai movies I've ever seen also. I got into Tokusatsu, the whole online fandom, really a long time ago, and I was really young. I was about like 11, 12. Mm-hmm. It was 2004. And then around 2005, I stumbled across clips of Gal Ranger versus Super Sentai, because I was curious as to see how they handled Forever Red, like how Wild Force did. I wanted to see how they did it, and I was like, oh my god, there's a lot more Red Rangers. It was a whole mind-boggling experience, so I just went to that, and I watched it in the very crappy HK subs back in those days.
I remember those days, like 244p online.
Oh my god.
Yeah. We used to have, we're getting so off topic, but that's fine. We used to have this Hong Kong market in the Twin Cities where I lived, and we would go there and I would buy the pirated DVDs of each season, and I'd be so happy. I'd be so excited to take, like Abba Ranger home, because I wasn't able to find Abba Ranger anywhere, and I would open it up and it was all just disc 2. Like, all 4 discs are disc 2, and I was like, all right, it was $5, whatever. Let's watch some disc 2.
I used to download and burn my Tokusatsu on blank DVDs.
I did that too. I would subtitle my own. Like, I scrubbed them and made sure that they looked good. Put them on Blu-ray even when I got there. Oh man, that'd be a fun episode to talk about the Tokusatsu early day struggles.
Oh my god, I know. I could go on forever for that.
But I think the thing that really struck me about Sentai was I got into it around Go Ranger Shinkenger, which was the 32nd, 33rd year. And so finding Gal Ranger, which was the 25th anniversary, which obviously huge achievement, seeing the Super Sentai movie with them, I was like, oh man, if they did this almost 10 years ago, what do they do for the 30th anniversary? And there's like almost next to nothing in Bokanger except for like the outros where they have, like, this is a team so-and-so, we're in their cockpit, and
I know. And then they had the movie.
Yeah, I was just so confused, because then when the 35th anniversary rolled around and you see like all of the trailers and like the teasers and everything, like showing all 199 of these guys, coming together, and you're just like, wait, so it's an anniversary season on the fives?
That was a dream come true, seeing every single suit fight a big battle.
So cool.
That was like my ultimate dream come true right there.
And it's like, I think that was such a good time too, because like I had just moved to college, and so getting my roommates into Tokusatsu wasn't really a thing I wanted to do. Like, I didn't set out to like be like, you're gonna like Tokusatsu, watch it, because I was like, people are gonna like it or they're not gonna like it. It's not my place to force it on them. But Go Kaiju came out, and just that opening shot of all of these heroes, how can you not want to watch it?
I know. It is. I didn't even know what to expect from the premiere. Seeing all the trailers and everything, I said, I don't know, it's going to be great, but I don't know how they're going to pull off that first scene. And they did it perfectly.
I think that is the most iconic Sentai moment, like, without a doubt.
Oh.
Like, if we want to quickly jump over to Rider, the poster I got behind me, the Decade versus Die Shocker, that before Gokaiger, that was the moment. That was when all hope seems lost, and you just hear the iconic noise, and all of them just walk.
Pretty good impression.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool. They just roll up on all these monsters, and they're just standing there for a good minute, and the camera's just panning left, it's panning right, and they're all like, "All right, let's go bust some skulls. Let's do this."
Trust me, when Decade was airing, I was like, "When is Super Sentai gonna do something like this? Oh my god, they really need to do something like this."
And they definitely one-upped it.
Yeah.
And then Decade, like a couple years later with O's, I believe it was, they did the O's 40th anniversary.
Yeah, Let's Go Kamen Rider.
Yeah, and like they had those introductions, and they got to introduce each hero all the way up, and I was like, all right, they did them dirty again. This is good. Oh man,
it was. Yeah,
but it's with Sentai, it's so weird and interesting to like have your 5-year be the anniversary, and then like when you get to like the 30s or even like the 40s with Zyuohger, which we just had, it's mostly just like hey, we did it, hey, remember this Sentai, here's a little excerpt about them.
At least with Zyuohger, I like that they did they were pretty subtle about the whole anniversary aspect. So, they had the 40th anniversary title card in front of before the opening theme. Before like the show starts, but they had the 2-parter with Gokaiger. I really like that. I like how they just put that in there instead of us like having to get a movie. But we still got a Super Sentai anniversary movie, but it was with the Ninja, so it was like mixed in there.
To me, I feel like Super Sentai, out of almost all of the big Tokusatsu franchise names, Ultraman does this thing, and I'm probably super wrong on this, so feel free to correct me, but Ultraman seems like every year they try to make it an anniversary of something, whether it's an anniversary of Ultraman itself, whether it's an anniversary of like Ultraman Zero is now a 10th anniversary of Ultraman X Zero. Is that what it is?
I believe it's Zero.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
you learn something new every day.
I think so. Don't quote me on that. I don't watch Ultraman anymore. I stopped after Orb. I don't know. I just not lost interest. I just realized it really wasn't really for me anymore. So
you're gonna get clipped on Twitter. It's gonna happen.
All right. Toku takes.
But it's just like, Ultraman seems almost every year to try to wrap in an anniversary element, because anniversary seasons are super fun. They're inherently, like a lot bigger and better than any other season, because they are hold to those standards. And with Rider is interesting because they will have like Kamen Rider Decade, which is a very clear like 10th anniversary Heisei series, and it's focusing on all of the previous riders. And then the next season is like the actual anniversary where it like, has like the little commemorative, character. And then Fourze 2 years later is like the one that actually falls on like the 40th.
The whole franchise.
Yeah. It's just like, all right, let's just do it. Let's just do it at these arbitrary times. And I feel like Rider has really kind of ramped up to Ultraman levels, where you would get like these anniversaries with like one season, and then we would go until like the end of Wizard, and then they all come back and team up again, or but now like with Geo and sort of the end of Heisei, it just feels like we've had like these heroes like every year they're doing some sort of movie together. And
I felt that same way too. But then I feel that way, and then at the same time I'm like, the show era for Kamen Rider, they were teaming up almost every single year too. So I mean, I guess it's almost kind of like the same thing that they did, but here they have like so many movies and stuff, as you mentioned as well. So yeah.
Sentai, though, still just has like this very firm grasp on, I don't know, reality, if that's the right word, where like, they have their team right now, and then they have last year's team. Obviously, we want to see, where those actors are, a year later, their hair is much longer, something different.
Or they chopped it off. Yeah. Weird team up hair.
Oh, that's true. Like Daigo from Kyoryuger had the short hair.
Yeah, and someone else had it. I think it was Deca Break in the Magi Ranger team up. He had some weird hairstyle. I remember that.
Oh man, was it right from TokuSHOUTsu that they had to put a wig on?
Oh my god. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he had some really short hair. I remember that.
Again, this might just be like my personal preference bleeding through, but Sentai gives us that small sort of exhilaration with those versus movies. Having those two team up is exactly what you want and you need. And then, you know, they splurge on the anniversary seasons or like a team up movie, and it just feels really good. And Kamen Rider, I feel like I'm to the point now that I'm like, do we really need another movie with all of them? Thankfully, we're in the Reiwa era now, and you know, hopefully all of those stay in the past until Den-O something happens. Den-O.
I keep forgetting there's another Den-O movie supposed to come out, but it obviously got postponed because of coronavirus, COVID-19. But I keep forgetting that's a thing. It wasn't really like, at least on my end, it wasn't really like promoted as I've seen on my timeline for Twitter.
Oh man, I do love when I see all the Kamen Riders together though. I will give Rider that. Speaking of Rider, have you seen all of Decade?
Hell yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Watched it as it aired.
Yeah, same here. It's such a good show.
Yeah.
I was surprised by how short it was, but Decade, I think Kamen Rider does a lot of stuff first. They do a lot of things in a sense first that then Sentai will piggyback off of, you know, a couple years down the road, and they'll do it better. And then I feel like Ultraman kind of just sits back and watches all of that going on, and then they do their own thing.
Step it up. Yeah.
And sometimes it's really good.
That too.
Yeah. But Decade was such an important series. That was my first Kamen Rider. And
nice.
If you guys haven't watched like any Kamen Rider and you're going to start with Decade, don't. It's very confusing because he's it's an anniversary series, and so he teams up with Kuga, but it's not actually Kuga. And then the actual actor for Kiva is the one that's guiding him and telling him you need to go and destroy all these worlds. And then you go and you meet Kiva, and it's a little kid. Like they're all these like parallel universes, and so. Going to watch Kiva directly after Decade, I was super confused. I was like, wait, isn't that the guy at you know, what?
Decade starts off, the first scene of Decade just starts off with him murdering all the Kamen Riders.
That I forgot about that, yeah. Oh, if we're talking about like amazing moments, Sentai, obviously, all of them teaming up in the first episode, or when the 199 Hero movie where the Gosagers, you know, like jump in and like it's all of them there. That was it. But for Kamen Rider, I feel like that scene, that Rider War that they have where he's fighting all of them, it's so good. And
it's so good. Oh my god. My jaw dropped when I saw that because we only saw clips of it during the previews. I was like, I can't wait to see this whole thing. And then it continues on into the second episode because when he meets the alternate version of Kuga, and then we see the flashback of Kuga going ultimate with the black eyes. Oh my god. Oh my god, that was crazy.
I wish Gokaiger did something similar to this where that wasn't maybe an event that had already happened, but maybe it was an event that was upcoming. Because Decade, or like with Decade, they just had this moment, and I very rarely have felt the sort of emotions of episode 31, the final one of Decade, where everybody who's helping him is like dying and disappearing and being forgotten, and
or they're turning on him.
Yeah, or they're well everybody like comes to his aid at the very end, and they're like, you know, screw what happens, we're gonna help you, we're gonna save you, and they stop the main bad guy, and it's just like you feel so good because it's like that final boss rush, and then they disappear and everything, you're just like, oh god. And you realize that Natsumi, she's in the same dress as that episode, and she realizes where she's standing, and it just like even just talking about it, I'm like getting like chills.
You feel it in the air.
Yeah. I feel like with just Kamen Rider, like Kamen Rider gives you these so good, just absolute pure moments, and typically they only really happen on these anniversary seasons. Like I'm not sure how you feel about Geo.
You know, I defended it in the very beginning because I was like, all right, so they're trying to like erase the memory, they're trying to like redo everything, but they're trying to erase the memories, and then later down the line once they get the ride watches, apparently they don't lose their memories and all that because the whole timeline changes already. It just became a mess after a while for me to really like focus on. I know a lot of people feel very strongly about Geo, so your opinion is yours, so that's perfectly fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, we're not trying to...
Yeah.
Not trying to invalidate anything.
No.
I just feel like out of all the anniversary seasons, to have one that's so perfectly there, the last of the Heisei era, you know,
right.
You have so much that you could do with it. And the problem with Decade is that you had X amount, you had, you know, 8 different riders that he got to go and visit. And then obviously they did the Kuga world. So you got 9. And if you do 2 episodes for each of that, that's 18 episodes. You got to introduce something else. And then obviously, you know, he went back, did like Black RX, and all the other stuff too. But it's just like, hey, say you have it perfectly set up there and you do your first half of the show with all of this, you know, new guys from Decade on, from Double to Geo. You have, it's just perfectly sitting there for you. You could do something almost exactly similar to Decade. And then halfway through the show, you reintroduce Decade. And it could have been like a war between like old Heisei and new Heisei.
That would have been kind of cool, actually. That would have been something nice that they could have done. Instead,
it's just kind of it's like, I call it Deno 2, but it's the train wreck version.
The train wreck. This is what I didn't like about Geo, but I understand because people aren't really available that often, or they couldn't be contacted or whatever was going on. But a lot of these cameos were, you know, like for like one scene, which was like 3 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever, just to give him the ride watch, and that's it. I'm like, come on, man. Come on.
I'm surprised by the amount that they did get back, because if you're not familiar, Gokaiger, one of the best, you know, Sentai seasons out there. Not necessarily because of, you know, the story or the characters, but because this took place right when 2011's tsunamis hit. And so there was a lot of relief and aid that the country was in need of. And there was a lot of kids that needed happiness and something to cheer them up. And a lot of the older fans, you know, mom and dad who watched Sentai over the years, they were able to take part in Gokaiger because Gokaiger just had this immense pool of actors that came together on their own. The show didn't set it up. Like, the actors came together.
They did it on Twitter too.
Yeah, and they said, you know, we want to come back to the show. What can we do? We want to, you know, bring smiles back to our country, which they're real life heroes. Like,
yeah,
and
that was very heartwarming.
The show, for what it is, the show could have been really cool, really good. The space pirate theme is amazing. The first episode is just, it's amazing. And I am so okay with how the season turned into more of a relief for Japan.
Me too.
And
Me too.
You know, it's really beneficial, the whole entire series and everything kind of around it. And obviously nothing like that happened recently with Geo to, you know, spurn that. And a lot of those actors are in agencies that then, you know, leave agencies, change agencies, and they...
Or they just retire.
Or retire, yeah. Or like that one guy that went to jail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we won't go there.
What's his face? From Gaim. Professor Ryoma.
Yeah. But I can understand why they weren't able to get it, and I really commend them for all the stuff that they did. And honestly, if you can get those other characters, those smaller characters, like with the Forze episode that they had what's his name with suspenders? He
Otsuki, I think was his name, right?
Otsugi, yeah.
Yeah.
Osugi. Like, they got Osugi back, and like that's all you need. You don't need Gentaro, who's now, you know, one of Japan's biggest premiere stars.
Yeah.
You just need someone that's in the show. Like, you need Osugi. Oh, you got Double? Okay, well, Shotaro, you know, he's pretty popular. Philip's way popular now. But Akiko, you know, she was in Rue Soldier. Like, she's available. Like, just get those pocket characters. And it would have been so cool because it's a time travel show to have these characters go back in time, and instead of impacting their story, their moments, they're impacting these side characters that then come back and help their character in their show. And so when you watch that show again, it's like, oh my gosh, they're here. They're totally helping them out because of their, you know, potential influence with, the writer. That's all the show needed to be. And let's put these big giant cannons on his arm and like these giant memories.
I did appreciate how they got a body double for Gentaro.
Yeah. If you were going to make an anniversary season...
This is the question I was going to ask you.
Oh, you were going to ask?
Damn it.
We can go back to it if you want.
No, you can ask me first.
Okay.
Please, I'll answer it to the best of my ability.
If you were going to make an anniversary season, what do you think is most important to include or to convey to your audience? What would you want to include?
I guess finding the right balance between telling a new story and having the whole old anniversary aspects into it. Something I appreciate about Gokaiger, I kind of mentioned this before about like what I look for in an anniversary, is that how the Gokaigers were always learning these lessons from different members along their journey to unlock the greater powers. We had we had Hakase and I'm learning martial arts from Jen because they were the weakest fighters on the team. They didn't have that confidence, and he helped them through that. Then we have Joe learning from Yellow Lion from Live Man that he can't give up on Barazorg because that's his friend. He's got to save his soul because he learned his lesson 23 years ago from that time that they couldn't save the Volt generals either, which was a big deal. So learning stuff from your superiors, I guess, is something very important because you make them feel like they're part of the story instead of just them just cameoing and just calling it a day like that. Especially when Rio from Dire Ranger cameoed and he helped he really boosted up Guy because he's like, oh, without my Gokai Cellular I can't be a hero. He's like, what are you saying right now? As long as you can fight and you do whatever's right, don't worry about it.
Yeah, right.
That's a good one.
That is, yeah, I definitely think like having those sort of milestones, those markers for their growth and their development is super important because a lot of times Sentai is super straightforward. Oh my gosh, this monster, he's dancing too fast, how do we stop him? Well, we got to learn how to dance together. I'm thinking about you, Geki Ranger.
Oh yeah,
and it's like they hit you over the head because obviously kid show, the lessons have to be there, but I feel like there's a greater scope that other characters, like having a Geki Ranger on your show who already knows how to dance and like all this, like they could teach them and impart the actual core message to them without it being super, hit over the head and super,
Power Rangers.
Oh, speaking of Power Rangers, Power Rangers has had 2 technical anniversary seasons. 3 if you count the Mighty Morphin reboot that they did after RPM.
Oh my gosh.
Pow! Bam!
We don't talk about that one. Oh my god.
Too late, it's going in.
That was the dark days right there.
Mighty Morphin will never die.
Oh, it will never, unfortunately.
But you mentioned the first one, Forever Red, which was during the Wild Force run, which teamed up all Red Rangers of all time together to go fight on the moon.
To fight the big bad Beetleborg.
Was it really?
It was.
Oh my gosh, how did I forget about that?
Was a Beetleborg. It was crazy because when I was a kid, I was like, "What the hell? Why did they find the Beetleborgs?"
Oh man,
it was great. That was a good team up, though. I really enjoyed that a lot.
That was the talk of the month for all the little boys in school that watched Power Rangers. Like we were talking about Forever Red for a long time.
Absolutely.
And obviously, the most recent one that came up was Super Mega Force.
Yes. Well, we had Ninja Steel also, but Super Mega Force is more of a anniversary-oriented season, even though that was I don't know what to call that.
It's crazy because, like, obviously Gokaiger was a huge influence on the future development of Sentai. Right. And with Samurai, Power Ranger Samurai being produced around the time that Gokaiger came out, it really kind of brought into an idea of this amazing scene. How is it going to work in America when the lead people in the middle aren't Power Rangers. They're, you know, like we started with the 16th season of Danger and have hit almost all of those. What are they going to do? And what they did was, we're not going to talk about that, but it was interesting.
New powers. Yeah. That's all I could say.
What would you have wanted to see instead? Like, what would be something that you could fix with that?
For starters, refilm the entire legendary battle. Don't use the Sentai footage at all, because it's really hard to cut around that when you see, like Go Ranger running in the background or Bioman fighting, or Die Ranger especially, because, well, they introduced I wouldn't have introduced any of the Sentai seasons that were not in Power Rangers to begin with. I get what they were trying to do, but they were still lazy at the same time. It doesn't really expand it when it's half.
Depending on your narrative level and what you wanted to do with the show, obviously Zordon is a huge aspect of, the first couple seasons run, and obviously that ends with his death and kind of everything moving on. But they've alluded to, like, he's from a different planet with other people that are like him. They could have even brought him back or had something similar to, in the stead, while we've been fighting on Earth, these other teams have been fighting on this planet, and then he calls them there. And
that would have been nice.
Yeah, a real simple, easy little thing like that, and then you don't have to refilm the whole...
Instead of powers not seen on this planet yet.
Yeah. Megaforce. Whatever your preference is with Megaforce.
I would have actually also not combined it with the Go Sager part of it with Megaforce either. I would have just made it 2 separate seasons. Yeah. And maybe make all the Rangers from different planets that we've seen in Power Rangers, like Eltar, as we mentioned, from Zordon's planet, a few other places as well.
Well, pump the brakes on there. They could still hold that for Q Ranger.
That's what I hope they'll do.
Yeah.
If they ever do Q Ranger.
I mean,
I hope they do that.
It makes sense. You have this whole team of alien Rangers, and we never talk about them again.
I know.
You know what I mean? Oh, man.
You said Decade's your favorite anniversary for Kamen Rider, right?
Well, it's between Decade or Geo, so yes, Decade.
Okay. What about Sentai? Is it Gokaiger? Favorite anniversary?
There's a meme that's been running on my YouTube channel for a long time that I say that Gokaiger isn't a great season, and I think that's mostly from a place of Gokaiger got a lot of people into this fandom when it came out in 2011.
Yes,
and
it did.
The problem that a lot of people tend to have with what I say about Gokaiger is because that is their first one, and no matter what your first Sentai or Kamen Rider is, it's always going to have a special place in your heart.
Right.
Nobody can tell me that Geki Ranger is goofy. Like, that's serious to me. Go Ranger,
Geki Ranger's Geki Ranger's like a top 5 Sentai. Of all time.
I had one person try to tell me Geki Ranger was really bad, and I was like, oh no, you were wrong, because there was almost 5 years of perfection there. You had Bokenger, it's so good. You had Geki Ranger, which is just this amazing, fun character study. You have Go Ranger, which is just completely bonkers, that just goes absolutely crazy and doesn't apologize. Shinkenger, one of the greatest. You had Shinkenger, which is like one of the greatest Sentai seasons of all time.
Another top 5.
Go Sager, which is like the season that I feel like has grown on me the most. It's got the best music, hands down, and a lot of themes don't really play out really well in that show, but because they tried it there, they can then introduce it to later seasons like TokuSHOUTsu, and it lands really well.
I feel the same way about Go Sager, because when I watched it, I didn't think it was downright terrible or anything, but I was like, it's not even like my favorite. But I've rewatched it before, and I'm like, every time they complete their arcs, they had different arcs. I was like, it really feels like a finale, and you can just end it right there. It's pretty good,
right?
And that end game arc was just nuts. It became one of my favorites.
It's so good. It reminds me a lot of an earlier season called Magi Ranger, which had those 3 arcs, within it of this is the final boss. Just kidding. This is the final boss. Just kidding. Here's the last 10 bosses. But I just feel like there's so many themes that Go Sager did. Like Go Sager tried these elements, and because of those things that you can see, we have other seasons like Kyoryuger or Tokyuger that take a lot from that. If you kind of peel it back a little bit, I can do examples maybe on my channel or something. They put that out there, and then those seasons were able to capitalize on how that one maybe didn't successfully do it.
Right.
But Gokaiger, I think Gokaiger is, as of right now, my favorite, just because of the purpose that it has in history and how meaningful that show is to a lot of people. Because again, it got a lot of people into the fandom. Watching it week to week with roommates who were into the fandom at that point, you know, from the get-go, and they were so excited, they were so, you know, ready for it, that like I had one who, the Shinkenger tribute episode was coming up, and I saw that, you know, so and so was going to be in it, and so I was like, oh, it's got to spoil Shinkenger for you. And he's like, isn't that one of the best ones? And I said, yeah. He went off for that weekend in his room and just watched all 47 episodes and the movies of that, and he was like, that was amazing, okay, now we can watch this. And then it literally didn't spoil anything, but he at least had an understanding of like the depth that some of these shows can go in terms of like story. Like if you've seen Shinkenger, if you've seen even Go-Onger, you know, has this really great finale. Like Sentai hits the finales way harder and better, in my opinion, than Kamen Rider does. And
I agree.
I was expecting so much with Gokaiger, and I think that might have been my main problem, is there was these magazine scans of the Green Ranger, Hakase, and he was like in like this like armor and everything.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
And everybody like on Henshin Justice Unlimited was just like, oh my god, he's been struggling with his memories this whole time. Nobody knows who he is. He doesn't know who he is. And I was like, oh my god, is he like an ancient warrior? Maybe he's Aka Ranger or whoever like the Anniversary Red is, and he's the one that like got all the Gokaigers together.
That'd be crazy.
There were so many fun fan theories, and then it was just like, oh yeah, it's just this random thing for an episode, and I was like, what the hell? And then the final episode, of course, I'm still disappointed.
For the finale, I was really hoping that they were going to get as many alumni they could for the finale, which they ended up doing for the the end credits. But I was hoping they can get whoever they could get back and just like give their Ranger keys back to join in on the final battle, which would be the Legend War again, just with the Gokaigers this time.
If I can say something about Gokaiger, I've wanted to make a video on this, but I've always been afraid of the backlash against it. But Gokaiger, it's kind of a move to be like, oh, your show wasn't very good, this is how I would change it, you know, kind of a mentality that a lot of people, especially on Twitter, have. But with Gokaiger, I really wanted this sort of aspect of they're helping, these past Rangers are helping them, these aliens to their planet, understand what it means to be human every week. And there is like in the second episode, there's like this young boy who steals one of the keys, and he even transforms like, you know, Marvelous is like, go for it, dude, knock yourself out, and he gets his handed to him. And I was just like, they need to do more stuff like this, where it's not necessarily about the previous Rangers getting their powers back, because they gave it up, you know, on their own to save the planet. It should be about the next wave of people who understand or are connected to those old stories that can then show up to take on the mantle. And so all these people that they've helped all through the year, like think of like Kamen Rider A to Z, where Kamen Rider Double's like falling out of the building, and everybody in the show is there watching, you know, tears, you know, you know, don't lose Kamen Rider now. And it's just this amazing moment that just swells you. And if you could imagine the Gokaigers just trying to like, you know, do all this on their own, they're trying to like swap through the powers, but nothing's working. And then all of these people show up, and we see like, you know, familiar faces from the movies, from the show, and they all, you know, the keys react to them, and they all become the heroes, and then the Gokaigers are in front of all of that, and we have a second legendary war.
That's what I was hoping for.
That would have been it, but instead of them giving up the powers, like all of them giving up the powers, it's the Gokaigers who give up their powers to protect Earth and Earth Sentai, and they get scattered, and so the Gokaigers leave the planet to go find those powers to bring it back to Earth where it belongs. That's how you should have ended it. We can
talk about this all day. There's so many like different scenarios that I could just like throw.
I'm getting emotional.
It'd still be good no matter what.
Yeah, definitely.
There's no kaiju.
I really wish we could have talked more about the Ultraman anniversaries, but like I said, there's just so many different aspects that we'd be talking almost about every single season to a degree. Don't calm down. But anyway, that's all that we really have for this episode, unless you have anything else you want to add.
What do you think they're going to do for the anniversary next year for Super Sentai?
Well, it depends on who you ask, because if the anniversary is next year, it really should be this year, because Lupin v Pato Ranger are two separate teams.
Oh, yeah, no.
Toku Twitter, you're drunk. Go home. What should they do? Obviously, you want to do something that is respectful of the past ones. I almost feel like because it'll be the 45th season, it would almost make sense to have either the theme or the year. Geo, I always pictured Geo as this really cool season that could have started with them in 2018, 2019, whenever the show started, and every other episode they go backwards in time. And so if you look at Sentai, which is the 45th season, you have your main, episode set up, and you could have like these monsters that travel through time, and like these heroes, are appointed to stop them, and they break this time continuum, and they end up going back in time little by little. And so like they're helping a team out one day, and then the next day they'll forget about them. And so like every episode will be a different episode, a different season of Sentai, all the way back until the first ones. So
you want a time traveling Sentai?
That would be what you say. That's exactly what I want.
That's exactly what I want too.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
That's exactly what I want.
But just imagine like they get all the way back to Go Ranger, and then all of them go forward together, and then they're there, and we get another, canyon scene of 5,000 Japanese extras. It's a lot of spandex.
I want to see how Sentai can handle a time traveling Sentai again. We had Time Ranger, but that was like they just stayed in 2000. That was it. They didn't go throughout. They didn't travel everywhere like that. I like you said, I want to see them travel backwards each time, each episode.
Time travel is so not really touched in Sentai much. Like they did a little bit in Ryu Soldier, and they did. I was going back to Goseiger, there was that.
Yeah, they did.
I was so excited. I was so happy and ready for that to be the game changer of that season. That first scene we see in Goseiger is actually future Alita, and I was just expecting all of these amazing things, and it turned into nothing. So time travel, Toei, we want time travel. The Western fans, we speak for the Western fans now.
We do. Oh, sheesh.
But it would be cool to have a time travel.
Responsibility. Yeah, I would love to see a time traveling Sentai that actually travels through time.
Please, that'd be so cool.
Please, Toei.
Even not an anniversary, just time travel. It's a good aspect that you should do. Decade's done it well. Deno's done it well, and Geo also dabbled. All right.
Geo dabbled. Yeah.
But that's all that we have for this episode of Let's Talk Toku. SentaiFive, thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. Thanks for asking me to come on. That came out of nowhere. I was like, wow, thank you so much.
Hey,
it's been an honor.
I've been looking. We need fun people on here. We need people that know their stuff, and anniversary seasons. I know you watched like pretty much all of Toku, and that this would be your jam, and I was absolutely right.
It was good to look back on a lot of things, especially for Rider and Sentai.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Like, I was showing Gokaiger to Lauren a couple nights ago, and she was just like, I'm so excited. I want to watch this season. And I'm like,
oh, she's going to love it.
It's so good. It's so fun. I don't know how many episodes
I hope they do
fun.
it 10 years after.
That would be so cool.
That'd be really nice what they did.
What if Sentai 45 is just Gokaiger 2?
2? I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I hope they can set itself apart from Gokaiger, though. Unless you're actually talking about getting the cast back. Which is unprecedented.
That might be hard, because Joe, the actor who played Joe, is really big. He does a lot of TV dramas now. And Sentai Pay isn't the greatest from what I've heard.
Best. No way.
I mean, it's entry level. It's hard to live just on that, and that's why all the actresses put out, like photo books and everything is to supplement that. That's it for this episode of Let's Talk Toku. We will see you all next time. Bye.
See ya.